The restaurant breathed money. It wasn't loud about it, no flashing gold, no unnecessary extravagance, but every detail was deliberate, restrained, expensive. The chandeliers didn't sparkle so much as glow, casting a honeyed light that softened faces and made even whispered conversations feel important. The white tablecloths were so crisp they looked ironed straight onto the tables. Glassware chimed softly with each careful movement, a delicate orchestra playing in the background of wealth. Lena moved through it all like a shadow that knew where it belonged. Her steps were quiet, her posture straight, her smile polite but guarded. She had learned the rules quickly when she started working here: never linger too long, never meet a guest's eyes unless spoken to, never give them a reason to remember you. In a place like this, being memorable was dangerous. She adjusted the tray on her palm as she passed the bar, the weight familiar and reassuring. 2 glasses of water, one sparkling, one still. A bottle of red wine resting in a silver cradle. Her arms ached faintly, but she ignored it. Long shifts were easier when you focused on movement rather than feeling. At the center of the room sat the table everyone pretended not to watch. Victor Hale didn't need an introduction. He had the kind of presence that bent space subtly around him, as if the air itself recognized importance. He wasn't flashy, no oversized watch, no loud gestures. His suit was dark, perfectly tailored, and his posture relaxed in the way only powerful people could afford. Silver threaded his hair at the temples, giving him an air of quiet authority rather than age. Across from him sat Cassandra Bell, his fiancée. She looked exactly like the magazines said she would. Tall, flawless, dressed in silk that caught the light every time she moved. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and her fingers tapped the table in a restless rhythm, nails gleaming like small weapons. Lena felt the shift in the room as she approached them. Some tables did that, pulled attention, demanded care. She slowed her pace, checked the order one last time, and forced her shoulders to relax. "Good evening," she said softly, lowering the tray. "Your wine, ma'am." Cassandra barely glanced at her before looking at the glass. Then she frowned. It was a small thing, almost imperceptible, but Lena noticed. She always noticed. Cassandra leaned closer to the table, peering at the label. "What is this?" she asked, her voice cutting through the soft murmur of the room. Lena's stomach tightened. "The Bordeaux you ordered," she replied, keeping her tone even. Cassandra let out a short laugh. "No, it isn't." A few heads turned. Lena felt heat creep up her neck. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Let me double check. I said this is not what I ordered." Cassandra's voice rose, polished but sharp. "Do you have any idea how much this bottle costs?" Lena nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. I'll replace it immediately." She reached for the glass, careful not to touch Cassandra, her fingers trembling just slightly. "Don't," Cassandra snapped. Lena froze. "Don't touch anything," Cassandra continued, standing abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor, loud in the sudden quiet. "Honestly, how hard is it to hire competent staff? Or is this what passes for service now?" The room seemed to lean in. Conversations died. The pianist's music faltered, then stopped altogether. "I apologize," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean." The slap came fast and hard. The sound echoed, sharp, shocking, unmistakable. Lena's head snapped to the side as pain exploded across her cheek. The tray tipped, glasses crashing to the floor, liquid splashing across the pristine tiles. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Lena tasted iron. Her ears rang. She stared at the floor, at the shards of glass glittering like ice, trying to understand what had just happened. Her cheek burned, heat spreading in a furious wave. Slowly, she lifted her head. Every eye in the restaurant was on her. She could feel it, the weight of their stares, the mix of discomfort and curiosity, the silent calculation of whether this was entertainment or something to feel ashamed of. Someone near the window gasped softly. A waiter near the bar stood frozen, tray halfway to a table. Cassandra stood over her, chin lifted, eyes cold. "Maybe next time," she said calmly, "you'll remember your place." Lena swallowed. Her hands shook, but she curled them into fists at her sides, nails biting into her palms. She would not cry. She would not give them that. She straightened her back, forcing herself to meet Cassandra's gaze for just a second before lowering her eyes again. "I'm sorry," she said. Victor's chair moved. The sound was subtle, but in the silence it was thunder. He stood slowly, deliberately, his expression unreadable. For a moment, it looked as though he might speak, but Cassandra turned toward him first. "Sit down," she said sharply, waving a dismissive hand. "This doesn't concern you." Victor did not sit. The air shifted. Even Lena felt it, a change like pressure before a storm. Cassandra, Victor said quietly. There was no anger in his voice. No raised tone. Somehow, that made it worse. She scoffed. Don't start. If she can't handle simple instructions, she shouldn't be here. Lena kept her gaze on the floor, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Memories pressed in, other jobs, other insults swallowed, other moments where silence had been the only shield she had. She told herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just get through the next few seconds. Victor stepped closer. Lena sensed him beside her before she saw him. He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, clean, understated. She felt suddenly small, exposed, standing between two worlds that had just collided. Are you all right? He asked. The question was simple, gentle, and somehow, it cracked something open inside her. She nodded once. Yes, sir. The word sir slipped out of habit, a reflex drilled into her over years of service. Victor noticed. His jaw tightened, just slightly. Behind them, Cassandra laughed again, but this time there was a flicker of uncertainty in it. You're overreacting, she said. She spilled everything. Look at the mess. Victor did not look at the floor. He looked at Lena's face. The red mark on her cheek was already visible, stark against her skin. The restaurant waited. No one breathed. And Lena had no idea that in a matter of seconds, everything she thought she knew about that night, and about the man standing beside her, was about to change forever. Victor did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket with a calm that felt almost unreal, as if the world had slowed to match his heartbeat. The movement drew every eye in the room. People leaned forward slightly in their chairs, sensing that whatever came next would not be small. He placed his wallet on the table first. The leather made a soft, final sound against the linen. Then came a slim black card edged in metal, laid carefully beside it. Only a few people recognized it instantly, and those who did went very still. I think we should pause for a moment, Victor said, turning slightly so his voice carried without effort. Because something just happened here that should never happen anywhere. The silence thickened. Even the staff behind the bar stopped moving. Lena stood frozen, her cheek still burning, her pulse racing in her ears. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the walls, but her feet would not move. Part of her feared that if she stepped away now, it would somehow erase what had happened, turn it into her fault again, the way it always did. Victor turned toward her. Are you hurt? He asked, more softly. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, I'm fine. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But he didn't challenge her. Instead, he nodded once, as if accepting her strength rather than the words. Then he faced Cassandra. You slapped my sister. The sentence landed like a dropped chandelier. For a split second, no one reacted. The words seemed too heavy to process. Then a murmur rippled across the room, sharp intakes of breath, the scrape of chairs, the unmistakable sound of shock spreading. Cassandra blinked, then laughed. Don't be ridiculous. Victor didn't smile. I'm not. Her laughter faltered. You never said you had a sister working here. I didn't think it was relevant, he replied calmly. And I certainly didn't think I needed to explain to the woman I planned to marry that hitting another human being is unacceptable. Cassandra's face flushed. You're embarrassing me. No, Victor said. You embarrassed yourself. The manager appeared at his elbow, pale and sweating, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Mr. Hale, please, there's been a misunderstanding. We can resolve this privately. Victor looked at him. Was there a misunderstanding when she struck an employee? The manager swallowed. No, sir. Good, Victor said. Then we're clear. Cassandra turned toward Lena, eyes blazing. You did this, she snapped. You stood there and, that's enough, Victor cut in. The finality in his voice was absolute. Cassandra fell silent, staring at him as if seeing a stranger. Victor removed the ring from his finger slowly, deliberately. It caught the light as he placed it on the table, beside the card. The soft clink it made sounded louder than the slap had. This engagement is over, he said. Now, Cassandra's breath hitched. You can't be serious. Over a waitress. Victor's gaze sharpened. Over cruelty. Her lips parted, words failing her for the first time. Around them, phones were already appearing, lowered discreetly, but recording all the same. The story was escaping the room even as it unfolded. Security approached, summoned by a subtle nod from Victor. Two men in dark suits positioned themselves near Cassandra. You're not throwing me out, she said, her voice trembling now. Victor, this is insane. He didn't look at her as they guided her away. No, he said evenly. What's insane is thinking I would build a life with someone capable of this. As Cassandra's protests faded toward the door, a strange stillness settled over the restaurant. It wasn't silence anymore, it was awe. Victor turned back to Lena. For the record, he said gently, you never had to apologize. Her throat tightened. I didn't want to cause trouble. I know, he said. That's why this mattered. He glanced at the manager again. She doesn't work another shift here, he said, nodding toward the exit where Cassandra had disappeared. Then he looked back at Lena. You don't either. Lena's eyes widened. Sir, you're not being punished, he said quickly. You're being freed. If you still want the job I offered you last year, it's yours. If not, you can take the time you need. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. She laughed softly, embarrassed, wiping them away with the back of her hand. I guess I should stop calling you, sir, then. A small smile touched his lips. I'd prefer that. The manager cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Hale, dinner is on the house, of course. Victor nodded absently, his attention already back on Lena. Sit with me, he said. Please, she hesitated, then nodded. As they took their seats together, a ripple of applause broke out, tentative at first, then genuine. It wasn't loud, but it was heartfelt, and Lena felt something warm bloom in her chest. Victor poured the wine himself this time, handing her the glass with a raised eyebrow. You always did have better taste than I do. She smiled. You never listened. I'm listening now. Around them, the restaurant slowly returned to life, but nothing was quite the same. People would talk about this night for years. The slap, the revelation, the billionaire who chose kindness over pride. And Lena, for the first time in a long while, felt like she had been seen.